All right, welcome everybody. Okay, to kick things off, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your agency?
Yeah, hi, my name is Ariel Langer. I'm currently a rising junior at UC Berkeley, where I'm studying data science. This summer, I worked as a data science fellow at the NIH, and within the NIH, I was at the National Eye Institute working on a data set that had to do with genomic causes of rare eye diseases. And this data set is available to the biomedical community online to help facilitate research. But unfortunately, a lot of that data was missing because it was originally collected in PDF physical form. So I spent the summer trying to populate a lot of that missing data and to fix some inconsistencies with the data set.
Great, Aditya.
Hi, my name is Aditya Krishnaswamy. I'm a rising senior at the University of Georgia, where I'm studying statistics and math. And this summer, I worked in Health and Human Services in the Office of the Chief Technology Officer under Mona Siddiqui, the Chief Data Officer. And I worked on HealthData.gov and the ReImagine Data initiative. And so the ReImagine Data initiative is this idea to kind of streamline data sharing across the department. So right now, all of the Health and Human Services is very federated, and all of the agencies are very siloed. We've heard that word. And we just want them all to share their data, and we can find a lot of insights that we haven't really seen before because there's just so much out there, and we need to unleash all of the data. Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Zhao. I'm a rising junior at Yale College studying statistics and data science and global affairs, and this summer I was a data science fellow at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So my main project, among several other tasks, was to find a way to unify various sources of customer feedback data. So if you think of BLS, our customers are the users of our data, people ranging from businesses to nonprofits to students to academic researchers, and we get feedback from these customers from a variety of sources about how they're using our data, whether they're finding our data easy to use and easy to access, and what it is that they're looking for, and whether we're doing a good enough job of providing them the information. And currently, this data is spread out across multiple different silos. These are the same term again. And you can find this through Twitter, through Google Analytics, and through several other internal data sources. So my project was finding a way and really creating a technical framework to unify and merge all of this data and then create a way to visualize and report it. And more than that is creating buy-in from stakeholders to trust that this is a way to be able to extract more actionable insights from this data, to not look at their data just in the context of their own data set, but in the wider range of many other data sets that all give similar information but from a slightly different angle that can better help inform their decisions and insights.
Great, and Jess?
Hi, I'm Jess Mazerik, and sometimes I wish I could go back to undergrad or grad school, but I am not a fellow, and I'm also not a data scientist. I work at the NIH in the Office of the Deputy Director, and I was the coordinator for the Coding It Forward at NIH this summer.
Great. So Ariel, let's kick it off with you. Tell us a little bit about, in your perspective, the long-term impact of opening up data. It's been a focus of the current administration, the past administration. What was it like on the ground?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I worked with a data set on genomic causes of rare eye diseases, and that data set is available to the biomedical community online to help facilitate research into understanding the causes of certain rare eye diseases. And opening up that data set is really important so that other people around the country can have insights into what's happening with these rare eye diseases, insights that spread beyond what the people at the NIH can think through. And it's so powerful to have structured data because it's one thing to put that open data online, but you sort of have to think about what is the life of that data set after it's online, who will be looking at it. And so something that we were thinking about a lot is the stakeholders for this data set, for this open data, are biomedical researchers who might not have a lot of experience with data science or computer science. And so on their end, having to clean up the data or understand the inconsistencies is not really what they're passionate about and not what they're looking to do with that data set. So anything that I could do on the front end of things to help clean up that data set and allow those researchers to work with it and derive insights into that data was really powerful for me when thinking about how to open up data and open up data in a way that is useful to people.
Well, just building on that, Jess, you're working with the director on creating a data strategy, right? And open data is a piece of that. Can you talk a little bit about data governance and data strategy, how this all kind of fits together?
Sure. So open data is very important, and NIH funds research that generates volumes and volumes of data. You heard Ariel refer to some of it, and you heard Nick in an earlier panel refer to some of it. petabytes worth of data in a single resource. That's pretty impressive. So how do we share these data and make them usable for the community, and make them valuable so that they're integrated and they can talk to each other? And so you can use a data set that's over here on brain diseases, looking at a data set over here on cancer therapeutics, and overlay them and really figure out how to ask new questions and find new solutions to advance public health. So NIH has a strategic plan for data science, and as part of that, we're working to build new infrastructure and integrate data resources to make it more usable for the research community and for the public, and to make sure that we can ask new important questions.
So let's talk a little bit about the kind of what you learned and the experience on the inside. Aditya, can you talk a little bit about what were some of the challenges or obstacles you encountered and how you overcame them?
Yeah, so Ariel talked a lot about how it's not just about getting data open, but about making it accessible. And I feel like that's a shift that we're dealing with right now. Data.gov and HealthData.gov have hundreds of thousands of data sets, but a lot of them are not being used because people don't know how to find them, or they don't know what is actually out there or how they can use it. So that was one of the big challenges that I was trying to address with my project on HealthData.gov. Looking at the Google Analytics and all the data sets out there and kind of figuring out what use cases can we put on the website to share with users on how we can make the data sets more accessible and how you can use them. And then also on the ReImagine Data, every agency within Health and Human Services is at a different level of data sharing. So NIH is one of the leaders of it, but there are a lot of other agencies that are at different stages. So most of our project was about getting them all to communicate and agree and support the plan that we put forward and support our proposed data governance structure. So while I came into the summer as a data science fellow, what I mostly did was just politicking and talking to people and learning how to communicate in the bureaucracy.
I can empathize. Daniel, you spent a lot of time at BLS talking to other people across BLS and labor about how they use data. Can you talk about what those conversations were like and what you learned?
Yeah, sure. So similar to Aditya, I actually had a similar experience. Coming to the summer, thinking I'd be working more with economic data and perhaps training machine learning algorithms. But when I kind of received my project, I realized that even though the pitch was to try to find a way to integrate just 2 data sources at the time, as I started talking to more and more people, I realized that there are a lot of different data sources throughout BLS, and in some cases, we're actually paying for that data, but we're not unlocking the full value behind that data. And I would have one meeting with someone else, and they would say, oh, I heard so-and-so is working with this other data source. One of them is Meltwater, which is in current form is a daily newsletter that some stakeholders in BLS currently receive, and it gives a summary of mentions of BLS across social media and news media, both in the US and internationally. And so I realized that this is actually a data source that could help better inform a lot of the decisions and questions that other people throughout BLS are looking at, if only they knew about this data source. And I could say the same thing for, I think, 2 or 3 other data sources where people were like, if I had known that this data source existed, I could actually do a much better job of answering the questions that my supervisor tasks me with when I look at just Google Analytics or just Twitter. And so thinking about a way to unify all those different data sources and tap into a lot of the technical capabilities that are available now. So, for example, traditionally, when you're trying to merge data sets, you might try to find a common key column between 2 tables. But now that we have techniques such as clustering and various unsupervised machine learning algorithms, we can actually try to extract the type of content from each text string and use that to match instead of a traditional fixed string. And so creating a framework, a technical framework that's easy enough to plug into for whatever data sources that currently exist and data sources that BLS might use in the future, and then talking to people, getting them excited about this project, about this framework of thinking about how to make decisions using social media data, and not just from one data source, but unifying it in the context of many other data sources, I think has been really gratifying and powerful because it's taught me that, in the real world, a data source or a data set never exists in isolation. In classrooms, a lot of times you'll get one data set, maybe 2, and you're asked to find some analysis or some insights from the data set. But in the real world, there are a lot of data sets that all tell you something similar about a different, or something slightly different about a similar question. And it's a much more difficult task to be able to integrate all those different data sets.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of building on that, the title of this is Building Blocks for a Data-Driven Government. And so it's really easy to find a data set and analyze it, but it's another thing about having the technical framework and the data portal in a way that people can use it and you can have a iterative process. So something that I think all of us realized this summer is like how our job right now is to make the proper framework so we can allow future users to actually use the data sets there.
And just a quick add, not only the technical framework, but also the procedural framework, and getting people to buy into these new processes of looking at data and getting them buy-in for that.
So Daniel, you mentioned classroom, and so I think it raises the question of, how has your experience, and for all the fellows, how has the experience changed how you think about data science, and what would you want to have learned in the classroom prior to coming in this summer?
Yeah, I think I can take this one. With a lot of the data sets that we use in the classroom, especially where I'm studying data science in school, we don't really think about how the weight that data set carries, the insights that we derive from those data set, what that weight would be in the real world. And I think working at the NIH on a data set that relates to biomedical data that researchers use, something that I had to think about a lot this summer that I don't normally have to think about in the classroom is what the life of that data set will look like after I'm done with it, when a researcher actually uses it. And so when I'm filling in like missing values that I couldn't quite check if every missing value was correct with my programs, if somebody uses that data set and tries to develop some sort of clinical trial or tries to write a research paper about rare eye diseases using the data that I scraped, if any of those values are incorrect, there's a lot more weight to that. And that's something that I had to think about in my job this summer about the potential impact of the work that I was doing and the data that I was helping to clean and to clean up that I don't normally have to think about in the classroom.
What about you guys?
Yeah, so I think one thing I realized is how we need to better communicate what data science is and how within the public sector we can use technologists. When I got my project description, it said democratize data. And I was like, what is this? Like, what am I going to be doing? And so I frantically called Rachel and Chris, and I was like, what am I actually going to be doing this summer? So I think we need to communicate what we can bring to the table as technologists, so that way when we go into a room with non-technologists, we know we're both on the same page of what we can share and what we can bring to the table. Yeah.
How about you, Daniel?
I think one very simple thing to introduce into a curriculum is just how to clean data sets. I almost think they could have an entire class on that because, I mean, you hear this all the time in a lot of products, and I think I get emails from Tableau because I tried signing up for them, and they're like, 80% of your time as a data scientist is spent cleaning data, so here is a product that will clean the data for you. But even then, cleaning data is not just getting a machine to do it, it's really thinking about how the data is structured, how it's collected, who's collecting the data, what inefficiencies or what weaknesses might lie in that process, and then making the appropriate decisions based on that. And so that's one of the reasons why this summer I haven't spent nearly as much time actually running, say, the machine learning algorithms. But even then, I think I'm happy with how I've spent my time because I've enjoyed the process of thinking about the data, meeting with the stakeholders who manage each data source, and then kind of connecting the two to figure out how to go forward.
It's been a few years since I've been in government, but I wrestled with some data topics, and it occurred to me that I would have liked training in stuff like metadata and data models and unique identifiers and there's a whole bunch of standards and messiness around data rather than, say, advanced statistics, which is important for data science, of course, but there's a lot of topics in data that I think would be super useful for the policy folks who are trying to wrestle this all to the ground. Now, Jess, successful summer?
Amazingly successful. I mean, NIH fellows, yes? Yes? I think, the offices were very happy. I was very happy. NIH leadership was very happy. The fellowship really confirmed for us at NIH something that we already knew, which is that we need computational and technical expertise in our workforce. And we need people who are thinking outside the box, that are coming from backgrounds that are different from biomedical backgrounds, and that's not just computational backgrounds, that's diverse expertise in sociology and behavioral sciences, and also backgrounds, different heritages and stuff like that, where you have different experiences and you can apply your experiences to the problems that you're working on and really figure out how to best communicate the solutions to different audiences. But yeah, I think it was really successful. We're very happy.
So you consider next year maybe?
We hope.
Excellent. So for the fellows, would you consider a tour of duty in government?
Definitely. I can elaborate a little bit on that.
No, that's it. You're already coming.
So I think I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and I think it was a presidential innovation fellow. I'm not totally sure, but he kind of gave the analogy that working in civic tech is like being brought on as a detective to solve a mystery in a new town kind of in the middle of nowhere. And he said that you're brought on and you're given this task and you don't really know where to go. So they tell you, ask this person or ask this sheriff. And they tell you a story, then you go to someone else and they tell you something different. And they kind of have a common thread, but they mention something slightly different. So then eventually you go to through the trouble of proposing, okay, maybe instead of looking inside the town, we go into the forest. And then your supervisor is like, no, that's too dangerous. There's too many security risks. There are going to be data loss. And then you're like, well, maybe we go to the edge of the forest, right? And then we start there, and then you gradually push your way through. So to me, this entire summers felt like almost solving a puzzle and trying to fit the pieces together. I think having the framework of the public service and having the framework of the mission at the end of the tunnel and trying to figure out how to put those pieces together has been immensely gratifying. And just knowing that what I'm doing is helping the Bureau of Labor Statistics better serve the American people, better make economic decisions, and help drive the economy ultimately has been an incredible experience.
I don't know how I can follow that, but every summer when I do an internship, I feel like I'm doing really impactful work. And more than any other summer, I felt like being within the federal government and being at Health and Human Services, I was doing stuff that I felt was actually going to make a real impact within the public sector. So rather than just going back to school, I begged Mona, my boss, to let me stay on through the year. So I'll be staying on in a remote capacity, and then hopefully we'll find a way back into the public sector full time when I graduate. Yeah.
Nice.
Great.
Just to echo that, my work this summer, I could really feel the impact of it and how important it was to be where I was. Physically, every day I went to work in what I believe is the largest clinical research center in the world. So just knowing that the doors that I was walking through every morning, the research that was happening there is really, some people's lives really depend on what's happening in that building and in that campus was really humbling. And to know that I get to be a part of that was so special and so different from past experiences I've had.
You can. So if data is so central to scientific discovery and research, to statistics and administration, to service delivery, to national defense, to all of the important missions in helping vulnerable populations, it's really the people who are going to wrestle with it, to make it better, to be totally focused on mission and do this in the constraints of the rules that we've got in place and figure out how to change them. So you can see why I'm so excited and enthusiastic about the future and the future of data talent in government. So please give a big hand to the panel here.